So welcome to our webinar on benchmarking residential water rates in Wisconsin, presented by the Environmental Finance Center at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and co-hosted by the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. My colleague, David Tucker, will present a new interactive Wisconsin residential water rates dashboard that was developed from data provided by the Public Service Commission. We have over 80 people registered for this webinar and a good representation throughout the state. We're so glad that so many of you were able to join us. This webinar is being offered as part of the Smart Management for Small Water Systems project, which is funded through a cooperative agreement from the EPA. Through this project, the Environmental Finance Center Network offers free training and assistance to small water systems, those serving fewer than 10,000 people, on finance and management topics. The Environmental Finance Center Network is a team of 8 university-based environmental finance centers from across the country, and you can see our membership here. We offer training and resources across all of our areas of expertise, which include fiscal planning and rate setting, asset management, energy management, funding programs, and more. In addition to trainings like the webinar we're hosting today, we also offer free technical assistance to small water systems on any of these topics. At the end of the webinar, we'll give you an opportunity to request technical assistance from one of our experts. David Tucker and I work at the Environmental Finance Center at UNC. PSC is a center dedicated to enhancing the ability of governments and other organizations to provide environmental programs and services in a fair, effective, and financially sustainable way. We do this by conducting applied research and developing trainings and programs directly for and with local governments, private organizations, and state and federal agencies. We work closely with these partners on a wide range of topics, including new and best practices in financial management, rate setting, planning for how to pay for capital projects, improving access to and understanding funding sources, and more. Water and wastewater is a huge portion of our work, and we have lots of free resources available for utilities and agencies to address some of the most common issues that water utilities face. And at this point, I would like to introduce David Tucker, Project Director at the EFC, who led the development of the dashboard for the state of Wisconsin. David is going to tell you a little bit about our partner, the Wisconsin Public Service Commission, and then we'll demonstrate using the rates dashboard.
Thank you very much, Lexi, and thank you to everyone who's tuned in for the webinar today. Excited to be here with you, and I want to say my word of thanks again to the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin for their help with the great data, the residential rates data and financial data that they provided to us to create the dashboard that we're about to show you, and just in general the great partnership that we're building with folks in Wisconsin. The PSC, which I imagine most, if not all of you on the call are already familiar with, but we just wanted to share a few things about them. There is a 3-person commission at the top of the PSC, with the goal of the organization to ensure access to affordable, reliable, safe, and sustainable electricity, natural gas, and water for all Wisconsinites through the regulation of the state's utilities. And of course, in this case, we are focusing in on the residential water today, but I'll just say, as Lexi indicated before, that we also work in the area of energy as well. And we wanted to highlight the PSC's mission of overseeing and facilitating the efficient and fair provision of quality utility services in Wisconsin, very complementary to our mission here at the EFC. And obviously the PSC water team in that division provides a great many services to the utilities and the people of the state of Wisconsin, assistance with setting rates, reviewing applications for construction projects, reviewing utility finances, and many other important services that they provide. looking at all of the community water systems in the state of Wisconsin. There are 582 of them, and we have almost all of those in our dashboard, which I'll say more about in a minute, including utilities of many different sizes from small to medium to large. In this webinar today, we hope that all of you will become familiar with the features and benefits of the Residential Water Rates Dashboard, using it as a tool to help compare one water system's rates to another, but also very important, not the between systems, but against yourself, as it were, looking at how your rates stack up against some financial benchmarks, affordability benchmarks, that kind of thing. And very importantly, this webinar today presents an opportunity for those of you who are small water systems serving 10,000 or fewer people to, during the webinar today and or after the webinar today, get some free direct technical assistance to us under the Smart Management for Small Water Systems project. So we'll say more about that. But while I'm talking here, if you want to volunteer later to have your water system shown on the rates dashboard and have me give some quick feedback and analysis to you, please go ahead and type that into the questions box so that Lexi can see that for later. And if you have questions of any kind about the dashboard or the project, please type those in too at any time. So we want to get to know you a little bit better right now, who is on the call with us. So Lexi's going to launch this first polling question of what kind of water utility do you represent? Are you a for-profit, a municipality, a sanitary district, some other kind of special district that is not a sanitary district, or perhaps you are not a water utility? You might be a consultant or a state official, but we'll give you a few more seconds to respond here, and then we'll show the answers up on the screen. All right, thank you, Lexi. And I can see that the vast majority of you are municipal water systems, which is kind of what I was expecting. And then we've also got almost 1 out of 10 of you are not water utilities. So let's move on to the next polling question. What size water system does your utility operate? Again, we're looking here at by the number of people served, not by the number of service connections or the number of accounts. So by the number of people served, are you very small, small, medium, large, very large, or again, perhaps you are not a water utility? In creating the dashboard and preparing for the webinar while you're still voting, I've been doing my best to learn how to pronounce many of the towns and cities and villages in Wisconsin, but if I mess up later on in the broadcast, please forgive me, and you're welcome to try and set me straight about that later on. Okay, so I can see that most of you are in the small category here of 501 to 3,300 people, but a nice distribution among the different sizes there, which is great. So let's go on to our third polling question, again, trying to get to know you better and what you're most interested in and concerned about. So from these utility management and finance topics, this is just to pick one. We recognize you may be concerned about multiple ones, but your choices are affordability, conservation, cost recovery, rate setting and communicating about rates, or perhaps some other concern that is at the top of the agenda for you. And I see the votes coming in steadily here, which is great. Okay, so it looks like the biggest answer was rate setting and communicating about rates, but also significant number of you concerned about affordability of rates and cost recovery. Very good. All right, well, thank you for those responses and for helping me to get to know a little better of who's on the call here. Just to talk a little bit about the source data for the rates and the finances. Again, we just had terrific help from the Division of Water, Telecommunications, and Consumer Affairs at the PSC. And we have 579 residential drinking water utilities included in the dashboard. The only reason that doesn't say 582 is because 3 of those utilities don't have residential rates, which is the specific kind of rates that we're benchmarking and analyzing on the dashboard, and including all different kinds of utilities, but local government being the largest concentration by far. You can access the dashboard through our website at the EFC at efcsog.unc.edu. You can also get there by going to the Water Teams page on the PSC's website, and they've got a lot of great resources there you can look at to assist you with running your water system, and you can click on the link there as well. We have at the Environmental Finance Center here at the University of North Carolina, we have been creating water rates dashboards for various states around the country for some years now. Again, not just in the southeastern U.S. here, but in the Midwest and the far west. So you can see the list of states we have there. We also have one for Canada. It's a proprietary dashboard, so that one you won't be able to use on our website without a password. But all of the rest of them, free, online, open to the public, and allowing you to compare your rates against a number of different characteristics, which you'll see more about in a moment, and to compare to different baskets or comparison groups of utilities, and we'll show you more about that in a moment as well. So with that, I'm going to pull up the dashboard itself now, and I'll give some explanation about how the dashboard works, and then we'll take your questions and get your, there we go, just wanted to maximize it there on the screen, and take your volunteers to show your system up on the screen. So our rates dashboard here, it's just for water. There's no sewer rates in here. We'd be very interested in getting that in the future if we can figure out an easy way to get at that data. And if you start on the upper left of the dashboard, you can, we start out at 5,000 gallons per month here. You can slide the slider anywhere from 0, which would essentially give you the base charge, wouldn't it, or the fixed charge, all the way up to 15,000 gallons per month. But we start out, we have to start somewhere, so we start out at 5,000 gallons per month here. And we know not all of you have the same billing period, and not all of you are in gallons. Some of you may be in CCF, hundreds of cubic feet. But we do standardize everything for an apples-to-apples comparison to thousands of gallons per month billing. And moving to the right here, this dial, the bill comparison dial, what you're seeing here is, and this is a made-up example utility, you're seeing the bill for your utility, and the dial is pointing just a little bit to the left of the median. You can see this $27 here. That's the median for the selected comparison group. So median meaning 50% of the bills fall above this number and 50% of them fall below it. Right now the selected comparison group is all the utilities. There's 579 of them you can see here next to the map. But you can also look at subsets of the data. You can look at similar numbers of accounts. So these are the utilities between 400 and 900 accounts, so 121 of them. You can look at utilities using the same water source in terms of how you're regulated. So these are the vast majority of you in Wisconsin, the ones that are regulated as groundwater systems. The same rate structure, this refers to the volumetric portion of your rate structure above and beyond the base charge if you have one of those. So these are all of the uniform rate structures. So they're not block rates that go up or go down. Similar median household income, we get that data from the Census Bureau. Within 50 miles distance, within the same river basin, similar revenue generation. These are your annual operating revenues. This does not include your non-operating revenues. And the same, whoops, hand slipped there for a moment, sorry about that, same Regional Planning Commission. But let's go back to all utilities, the largest basket, and go back to the bill comparison dial. So you can see that the needle on the dial is pointing to this dark green band in the middle. This is the middle 50% of the bills. And then we've got a couple of light green bands and a couple of yellow ones. The yellow ones are the bottom 10% and the top 10% respectively. And then we've got 15% and 15% here in the light green areas. You can also see what the minimum and the maximum bill are at the bottom there. And for all of our dials, there's a little question mark button. You can click on them, and a little help box opens up to give you a little orientation to it if you have questions whenever you're using the dashboard. So these folks in this made-up utility have a bill that's pretty close to the median, a little bit below that. We're also interested in what we call the conservation signal or conservation pricing signal. And the idea here is this: water being the scarce and precious resource that it is, when a residential customer is using a higher, more discretionary or non-essential amount of water in a given month. And so that might be, say, going from 10,000 to 11,000 gallons per month. For that next 1,000 gallons, beyond what a typical family would use just for, you know, cooking and cleaning and taking a shower and that kind of thing, what is the price signal that's being sent at that point? And we break it up into 4 quarters. You can see 2 shades of yellow, the weaker, if you will, price signals, 2 shades of green, the dark green representing the quarter of the data, because these are 4 quarters here, with the strongest conservation pricing signal. And this is all going to the idea of, do we send a signal in the pricing to the customer that says, well, once you've gotten past what your typical needs are in a month, when you get to that 10th, 11th, 12th thousand gallons per month, do you really want to buy that or not, or do you want to conserve a little? So going to the dial below that, we have the affordability dial. Now, we could have a whole webinar just about affordability, which we won't today because it's a complicated subject, and this dial serves as a way into that conversation, a starting point, if you will. So what we do here is, for the selected amount of consumption, currently 5,000 gallons, but let's try, I don't know, taking it down to 4,000 right now. Multiply that monthly bill by 12, so we get an annualized bill, and divide it by the median household income. And we get that data from the U.S. Census Bureau from the latest available 5-year American Community Survey. So that falls at a couple years behind, because 2013 is the most recent one they've published. And we divide the one by the other, and we get a ratio or a percentage. So for 4,000 gallons a month of water, the customers of this utility would be paying about 0.6% of their income if it was a median customer. Now, if you click for a moment on the Characteristics tab, we'll see for this community what is that median income. Now, you as an individual customer might fall well below that or well above that. But this is the median here, and you can contrast it to the statewide average. So this community, almost $9,000 less. You can also look at the poverty rates, and there would be many other things to consider about affordability. If you click in the help box on this link right here, it opens up to a great article my colleague Shadi Eskoff here at the EFC has written on this subject if you want to read more about it. So let's adjust it back to 5,000. And then the final dial here, the cost recovery dial. There are various ways of looking at cost recovery for your utilities. In this case, we're looking at the operating ratio, including depreciation, in the denominator in the operating expenses. Now, you could also calculate it without the depreciation, but we're including depreciation here because we're using it as a proxy, if you will, for, are you not only bringing in enough revenue from your rates to meet your operating and maintenance expenses on a day-to-day bills you've actually got to pay, but are you also bringing in revenue that you can use for future capital needs? for example, to put it into your capital improvement fund now for that project you know is coming up 2 years from now in your capital improvement plan, and that kind of thing. So if you hit 1.0 here, then you're breaking even with covering both your O&M expenses and depreciation, but we keep you in a sort of red red range up until that point, and then still not quite going to, you know, the happy green color until you get to 1.2. And the reason we do that is, just as with affordability, there's not automatically a magic number, magic ratio that is always going to be appropriate in every situation. But in general, if you're bringing in that additional 20%, it's probably going to be helpful to you with things like the assets that you purchased, you know, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Typically, there's been some inflation in the meantime, and it's going to cost you more to replace it tomorrow than when you bought it yesterday, as well as, you know, other things that you may be dealing with, growth in the size of your system or increases in other expenses. So we start that happier green zone there at 1.2. Again, we could do a whole webinar just on cost recovery. Now, right below the map here, I want to make sure you're aware of this slider here to observe the effects of raising rates. So let's say you wanted to simulate a 40% increase, and this is all at once in your rates. Granted, your customers would probably be very up in arms, but this does allow you to slide it anywhere from 0 to 100%. And the laws of supply and demand being what they are, while sliding this slider up is going to increase the bill and the revenue that comes from that, and all of the dials are going to adjust accordingly. Typically, when something becomes more expensive, people will buy less of it. So we have, in an attempt to simulate that at a sort of 30,000-foot view, we've programmed in a 3% drop in demand for every 10% increase in price. Now, each of you will know your customers or your utility better than I do. It may be more like 2% or 1%. It might be more than 3%. But again, this is a way into that conversation. And we do have a number of tools you can find on our website that are specific to questions like affordability. We have a great Excel-based affordability assessment tool. You can access that for free. Download a copy of it from our website. We also have water and sewer rates analysis model, another great Excel-based tool where you want to create a more detailed scenario about a potential rate increase, and you get to put in a lot more factors and parameters there. I showed you a brief glimpse at the characteristics tab before, and this tab gives you a few critical statistics about the utility. What kind of ownership does it have, number of accounts, service population, what's the operating revenue. And we also have a links tab here, which allows you to go to the web page that we have showing other states' dashboards, EPA's website, because this dashboard was funded on a one-time basis by the EPA through the Small Systems Project. You can click here to request direct technical assistance, like Lexi and I were talking about a little while ago. Or if you click on this red button here, it'll send an email to yours truly where you can ask me a question or make a comment about the dashboard. We also wanted to point to some useful resources that the water team at the Wisconsin PSC provides here. So their page, information about their water conservation initiative, links to annual utility reports, and the annual fact sheet that the water team prepares there. Now, all of this has been explaining the dashboard to you on the basis of one made-up utility. We have a couple of other made-up utilities here, too, that tell different kinds of stories, but would love to show an actual utility up here. So, Lexi, do we have any volunteers yet?
Yes, we do. We have many volunteers.
Terrific.
Thank you all for volunteering. Our first is Village of Milltown.
Excellent. All right, so I will pull up Milltown here. Chapel Hill, where we're broadcasting from today, is right next to Carborough, which is an old mill town, or at least it used to be. So we know about mill towns here in North Carolina. All right, sorry, it's taking a little while to scroll through here. There we go. So, Milltown, let me go straight to the characteristics tab for a moment. It looks like you're a municipality, a smaller system with an MHI a good deal below the state average, about $16,000 per year below the state average, a higher poverty rate. Looking at your water rates, again at 5,000 gallons. And by the way, when you're typing into Lexi, volunteering to show your system up here, if you want me to slide it to some level higher or lower than 5,000 gallons that fits more the typical residential consumption for your particular neighborhood, your particular community, go ahead and type that in as well. But for 5,000 gallons a month here for Milltown, we see that your bills are about $4 a month below the median for these 579 rate structures that we have here. The conservation signal is in the second from the bottom quarter of the data, so sending a stronger conservation pricing signal at this higher, more discretionary level of going from the 10th to the 11,000th gallon per month. Higher than some, not as strong as others, still below the median there. Looks like you have been working to keep your rates affordable for your median customers. So for someone with that median income, it's about 0.75% there. And then the one concern, potential concern anyway, that strikes me is the lower than 1 cost recovery here. Now again, this is including depreciation with the operating expenses. So since we don't have that broken out separately here, perhaps you are bringing in enough to cover your operating and maintenance expenses, certainly hope so, but not enough to do that together with the depreciation that you've reported financially on your annual report from 2013 to the PSC. Ideally, we would like to see that at or above 1. And we have been talking with folks in Wisconsin state government about a future version of the dashboard where we would have more than 1 financial dial. We'd have both flavors of the operating ratio dial with and without depreciation and some other dials as well to illustrate other financial key performance indicators. I'll use this also as an opportunity to illustrate the rate slider here. So if we tweak the rate slider up to where the cost recovery dial here breaks even, for example, so let's try and get it to 1.0. So that'd be a one-time 37% rate increase. That would be pretty tough for a typical customer to take all at once. So I think in real life, when we work with folks on potential rate changes, rate increases, we typically are more advising them to do something in a stepwise gradual increase across time. So then, of course, this goes to something that I didn't really get into yet. Looking at the dials on the dashboard one at a time really isn't good enough, is it? It's important to look at how they interrelate with each other or how they tug against each other. Because now in this situation, while the cost recovery is more where you might want to see it, now your median customer is paying more than 1% for their bill. So it starts to get into territory where you might have questions about it, how affordable that is for your customers. So we know that these kinds of decisions take time, and we hope that giving Milltown folks a look at this is some help. As we were saying earlier, if you want to request additional help on rate setting or energy management or asset management, you'll have an opportunity to click on a poll later on in the broadcast to do that. You can also always go to the Small Systems website or contact me or Lexi to do that. So thank you for volunteering there, Milltown. Do we have another one as well, Lexi?
We do, and before we get to the next volunteer, we had a really good question come in.
Excellent.
That is, one of our participants noticed on the cost recovery dial that the color switches back to yellow after there's a green portion. And why is that?
So that's a very clever question. Thank you very much for whoever contributed that to us. And we did do that on purpose. And the idea there is all of the things being equal. And there are exceptions. So for example, let's say that you were a system who had a cost recovery of 1.0, but it wasn't 1.2 or above. It wasn't in the green zone there. But you're one of those really lucky folks, and this doesn't really happen nearly as often as it used to back in the 1970s, say, when the federal government was providing a lot more help in the form of grants, as opposed to today, where you're probably going to use cash or loans or bonds, some combination thereof, to finance things for capital projects. But let's say that you had a whole new water treatment plant you were going to build, and that was completely covered by grant money. So you're not going to have a loan to repay. You know, perhaps you don't need to be taking in that extra 20 or 25 or 30%. But typically, you're not going to be in, you know, big fat grant city, are you? And so more is better, except up to a point, because if I'm a customer of a water utility, of course I could understand that the utility is trying to bring in some additional revenue for necessary capital improvement projects so the system doesn't fail and suddenly I'm without water one day. But I also probably don't want to see a 100% markup there, because then I'm really absorbing a much larger bill than just paying for the underlying O&M expenses. So the idea here is that going above 1.8 into a yellow zone might raise the question, and you know, each situation is going to be different, but might raise the question if the rates are too high and the rate of savings is too accelerated there. It's not a guarantee, you know, that could still be green territory. You know, something lower than 1.8 could still be yellow territory. But thanks, that's a really good question.
Thank you. So next we have City of Whitewater, and they would like to use 4,000 gallons as their consumption.
Very good. Seems to me I've heard of something called Whitewater in another state in the country other than Wisconsin, but let's not talk about that. Let's just go straight to, here we go, Municipality of Whitewater, 4,000 gallons per month. All right, so we can see here that things overall are looking pretty good. We've got a bill that falls in this light green category here, so in the bottom 25% of the data for these 579 rate structures, so well below the statewide median. And then we've got here a conservation signal that is not all that strong. It's in the bottom quarter of the data, but still not all the way at the bottom there. Affordability. Usually when I look at the affordability dial, I like to look over at the characteristics tab. So despite the fact that your MHI is way below the state average there, about 22,000, 23,000 below, still the rates are staying pretty affordable for your median customer at 0.61%. And yet the cost recovery is still, you know, above 1. It's 1.13, so that is not bad. It's not 1.2 or higher. But I'd say that this system looks to be in pretty good shape, just with that one question about depending upon what your capital improvement plan says and how you're planning to fund that and where you see that going in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, where you would like that number to be at. So glad to see that you don't seem to have any huge problem on your doorstep right now from what we're seeing on these 4 dials. Do we have any other volunteers, Lexi?
How about Sussex Water Public Utility?
Very good. And while I'm bringing up Sussex, should we run out of time in the hour here to show all of you who are volunteers, we will still be reaching out to you offline after the webinar is over, and we'll be sending you a little report, just a brief report we're going to make up for each of you on the basis of what we see on the dashboard, and hopefully that'll be of some help to you, and it'll also give you an opportunity to turn that back around and ask us more questions, because for one of our technical assistances in the Small Systems project, we can give you potentially up to 20 hours of our time for those of us here at our EFC and the other environmental finance centers in our network around the country. So for Sussex, again, curious to see on the characteristics tab where we start out on the MHI front. In this case, we have one that's a good deal above the statewide average, almost $71,000 per year. The bill for, I'm going to slide it to $5,000 unless or until I hear differently from any of you. The bill at $5,000 is just a little bit below the median for the state. The conservation pricing signal, again, in that second from the bottom quarter we've seen before here. So below the median conservation pricing signal, but not towards the very bottom either. Affordability for your typical customer, your median customer, the water rates look to be very affordable there, even less than 0.5% at 0.42%. And similar to the system we saw before, you're above 1.0 there on your cost recovery, including depreciation at 1.17. Still not quite at 1.2 or above, but again, where you would ideally like to fall there, depending upon your system situation and your capital improvement needs for the coming years and how you plan to finance that. Now, I'm going to point out one other thing too here that I didn't mention before, which is with some of our sources of data from financial reports, for example, there is some lag time between when those reports are prepared and given to the PSC and they turn them over to us. So let's say that just yesterday you finished up a more recent financial report. You can click on this Edit Data button right here, and you can click on the Input Financial Data button, and you can type in the numbers from the more recent report that is sitting on your desk in front of you. So we'll just use some completely and totally made up numbers here. Let's say we've got operating revenues of $1.5 million and operating expenses of $1.35 million here. And then if you hit Save and Close, it's going to visualize that on your computer only. This won't be showing up for anyone else who's using the dashboard somewhere else. And it's only good while you are having this session with your browser. If you go and close your browser, then open it back up, it'll be back to the default numbers. And you can switch back to the default numbers in this session just by going back here and clicking on Use the Data from the Survey. So I do want to make you aware of that. Also, if you want to do some scenario testing, you can slide the utility selector all the way back up to the top. And we have a manually add your own utility. Again, this is temporary. You're only going to see it on your own screen. No one else will see it. And it's only good for this browser. So you could create a whole new utility from scratch, for example. We'll create one here called Bob Incorporated, or you could use your utility's name and data. And let's say you were thinking of changing the water bill to something other than what it is right now. We'll say $35 a month. Or let's say you had more recent MHI data in your opinion than what we've reported out from the Census Bureau. I think you get the idea. You can type these in here and then hit compare at the selected consumption amount that you slide here, and then it'll temporarily show you where you fall right here. So just want to make you aware that that tool exists also within our tool here. Do we have another handy-dandy volunteer, Lexi?
How about Village, I'm sorry if I mispronounced this, Village of Wasaki.
Okay. Wasaki. All right. There we are. Wasaki. All right, so Wasaki, again, a small municipal system with a median household income significantly lower than the state average. Using 5,000 gallons as our starting point, we see that you're falling within the middle 50% here, just a few dollars below the median of 27. you're at 2385. Conservation signal, this is starting to sound familiar here. You're falling into the next to the bottom quartile or quarter of the data there, but still not all the way at the bottom, not all the way at the top. The affordability dial is showing us for your median customer that you're keeping the bill just below 1% for them, 0.98%. So it looks pretty affordable. And at the same time, you're managing your revenues and your costs in such a way that you're able to bring in some additional revenue for capital improvements, giving you a cost recovery ratio of 1.29. So I'd say that's looking really good for a system, any system. Also looking really good for a small system there. So, you know, well done, folks. Happy for you. Can't really see anything that looks to me immediately like a problem. But again, if you have any questions you'd like to ask us about now or afterwards, feel free to contact us. We love to see it when systems are in a position that they are able to keep those rates affordable and still be doing a great job of recovering the costs to keep the system financially sustainable and functioning at a high level across time. Lexi, do we have any more general questions from the audience about anything?
We do. We have a question. How does the dashboard compensate for utilities that have more infrastructure, things like iron filters and water plant and water softeners?
Well, those are good questions, and I think they kind of sit within a broader question about what kind of utility are you and what kind of infrastructure do you have. Obviously, some utilities have a much smaller footprint, others a much larger one. In some cases, there may be utility that is a purchase-only utility, so you don't even have your own water treatment plant. You've basically just got a distribution system because you're buying water from the larger system next door, say. In all of this, the dashboard doesn't dive deeply into the details about your infrastructure. It's not really a tool that's designed to do that. But whatever kind of infrastructure you have, you would want to be in the black on your cost recovery, naturally. And you know, even if you basically just have a system of pipes and then some staff and some administrative overhead, you still got some capital expenses there, and so you'd want to be bringing in enough revenue from your rates to be able to maintain and renew the capital stock across time. I don't know if that adequately answered about some of the specific kinds of equipment you're mentioning there. Hope that was what you're looking for, but if not, you know, you can always type in a follow-up question to Lexi in the questions box there. Lexi, do we have another volunteer here from
Sure.
our Wisconsin system friends?
Let's try Algoma Utility Commission. They say their rates are typically higher because they have to soften their water. So that might tie in well with our last question.
Very good, very good. And I'll say one more thing about rates on this dashboard and dashboards from other states where we work, like our home state here of North Carolina. All right, so it's not the sanitary district, it's...
I believe it's just Algoma.
Right, right, very good. So in cases where a municipal system, say, here in North Carolina, were to have different rates for customers inside the municipal limits versus outside those limits, or what we call inside rates versus outside rates. In a case where those rates are not the same, we use the inside rates on the dashboard, and that's the approach that we take in other states as well where there is a difference. That said, there are some systems in any given state which are in a more rural situation, a much more spread out situation, where the amount of infrastructure expense per customer is higher, and that their entire service area might more closely resemble just the quote outside unquote service area for a municipality in here in North Carolina, say. And so that is one of the reasons why comparing your rates against other systems needs to be done very carefully. Looking at things like the cost recovery dial and the affordability dial, you'll notice those are not compared against any peer groups. They're just compared against some kind of an index or a standard. And again, we are looking into perhaps having more of those financial KPIs going forward. If you look at the North Carolina dashboard, for example, we've got one with an estimate of the percentage of life of your total asset stock that is used up, 33% or 60% used up. So I think that was a very good question. And let me just give a kind of overview of Algoma's rates here. And then,
David, they have 3,000 gallons.
Thank you. Thank you, Lexi. And thank you, Algoma, for specifying what the best consumption point for comparison is there. All right, so looking at that for your typical residential customer, we see that given your cost structure, like you were saying, your rates are above the statewide median. In fact, they're in the top 25% of the data here, but not in the top 10%. You're sending a strong conservation pricing signal in the next to the top quarter of the data there to your customers when going from 10 to 11,000 gallons. Looking at the characteristics tab for folks in the Algoma service area, the MHI again is a good deal below the Wisconsin state average, not as low as some of the other volunteers we've had here, about $12,000 less per year. And those rates are for your median customer, looking pretty affordable, 0.83%. I will say one more thing on the affordability score, which is if you can imagine that median where 50% of the data lies above it and 50% lies below it, it could be that if we had every one of those data points lined up on a line in front of us right now that we could look at, that most of them would cluster tightly around the median. In other words, just about everybody would be around $40,000 a year. So that would be one way that data might be distributed. Or it might be a very different kind of distribution of the data than that. You might have a median at 40,000, but you've got a bunch of people that are way above it and a bunch of people that are way below it. Maybe you've got 20% or 30% of your customers who are down there making $25,000 a year or less. And that's one of the reasons why going to our website and another free tool, the affordability assessment tool, can be very helpful to look at. You just put in a brief bit of information about your rates, a brief bit of information you can get for free from the Census Bureau, and then you see more of the breakdown in different stratas of your customers, what the impact on the rates is potentially to them. The cost recovery dial, I think that is the highest number, the strongest number we've seen so far on this webinar at 1.44. So I'm going to take a wild guess that the folks in Algoma in managing the utility are already engaged in financing a capital improvement project or looking at doing that sometime in the relatively near future. So I would say that all in all, you look like you're in a pretty good situation here. Glad to see that. And nothing really immediately jumps out at me as a real source of concern there. I think we've got about 9 minutes left, so I think we have time for one more question or volunteer.
So a question that we have is, why are sewer rates not shown on this dashboard?
Now that is an excellent question. Our new friends at the Wisconsin Public Service Commission have explained to me that while all community water systems in the state are regulated under state law by the PSC, and therefore the water rates and the financial reports for those water systems are easily at hand in their database, which we were very grateful to be able to have them report out that data to us for use in the dashboard, that the situation from a regulatory standpoint in your state is different for sewer systems. Sewer systems are not required to be regulated by the PSC. They can do so on a voluntary basis, and if memory serves, there are 9 systems which are doing that currently. Otherwise, a sewer system will probably be more likely to be a local government sewer system that is self-regulating. Therefore, it's not mandated under the law for them to turn over their rates and financial data to the PSC. Now, because it is so often the case that people are interested in looking at the combined cost of water and sewer services when evaluating the affordability of rates and cost recovery and that kind of thing and how to set rates, we definitely are interested in finding a way to get that sewer data into the dashboard in the future, and we're exploring different possibilities now with our state-level contacts in Wisconsin. If that's something that you feel strongly about, that, like, yes, we really would love to see that on the dashboard, feel free to shoot that to us in a message, and we can put that into the picture as we're exploring what we can do to make this powerful tool even better next year. All right, well, I think at this point, if there's any of you we haven't gotten to, my apologies, but we do want to end on time about 6-7 minutes from now, and we will be getting back to all the rest of you who volunteered and requested information offline about your rates. But I want to get back to a few things to close out the webinar together with you, and one of those is to make sure that you're aware of some of the other free resources that we can provide to you. We have a blog, a very active blog that my colleague here, Lexi, manages very ably for us, and it's very active. We post something to it every week. Water and wastewater finance is probably what you'll see there the most frequently, but you also see things at times about energy finance or other kinds of environmental finance. Also on the right, you can see the web address for the Small Systems Project web page, which is actually recently new and improved and even better. And we also have a Twitter account. If you tweet, that you can follow us that way too. Speaking of the blog, if you are interested in subscribing to it, Lexi is going to launch the poll now, and you can click yes. Just want to assure you that if you do sign up for the blog, we promise you we don't give or sell your email address to, I don't know, some foreign country or anything. We just sign you up to the blog is all. And if you like it, then you can stick with it. And if you don't, you can always unsubscribe. But we hope a bunch of you will sign up for it. All right. And Lexi, is that enough time, you think, for folks to answer about the blog? Okay, very good. And we've got another question we want to shoot your way here. Again, these are the categories of the Smart Management for Small Water Systems project we were telling you about. And it's a project in all 50 states, including your state of Wisconsin there. So if you want to request in any of those areas, rate setting, capital planning, financial management, asset management, energy management, etc., this is another opportunity for you to do so. If you're not sure because you want to find out more about what this means, you can click on that too, and then we'll get back to you and have a conversation with you. Typically, in us providing you a technical assistance, we just do it remotely by phone and email. We'd obviously need a little bit of your time and for you to provide us some data so we can do the analysis and the advising for you. But typically, it's not a lot of your time. Certainly nothing like up to 20 hours that we might spend at our end of things. All right. Well, thank you to those folks who voted there. Do want to make you aware of a particular opportunity here in the next couple of months. One of my colleagues from the Southwest Environmental Finance Center, Heather Himmelberger, the director of that center, she's a nationally recognized expert on asset management for water systems. And she is looking for some systems, some small systems serving 10,000 or fewer people who would be interested in her helping them specifically on asset management, possibly coming to your system in person this month or next month, depend on where you are in the state from just a travel perspective. And it could deal with any of the things you see on this blackboard here, issues for planning, personnel changes, aging infrastructure, ability to meet a regulatory requirement. If any of those things apply or other asset management questions, Heather would love to help you with that, and it's something we do need to get done before the end of the calendar year under this round of the project, though we'll have another round of funding that will continue on through all of 2016. I know you just voted for if you're interested in TA help in general on any of those topics, but I am going to ask you to take just a second now if you have a particular interest in asset management and possibly having Heather come to discuss something with you in person. If you're not too far from the Milwaukee airport, that is, then go ahead and vote here. Sorry if that's a little confusing. There's a little overlap with the previous question, but we just want to try and help fill up Heather's plate here for this need under the project in the next couple of months. All right, well, thanks for voting on that. Also, Lexi's going to push out to you now an evaluation link for your opportunity to give us some feedback on how you feel about this webinar. If you have time to fill it out now, please do. If you don't, if you need to get on to the next thing in your workday, you're going to have another opportunity, because I think within the next couple work days, you'll all be receiving an email with a link to the video for this webinar and the slides, and also the evaluation link again. We've put up here on the screen email contact information for myself and for Lexi K. Herndon. And so you're welcome to contact us with any questions you have after this webinar. It looks like we're going to end on time here as promised, and just want to say thank you to all of you who took time out of your busy workday to tune in with us today, all the systems who volunteered to be up on the screen. And we'll be getting back to those of you that we ran out of time for here, because we want to help everybody we can in the water systems in the state of Wisconsin. So thanks very much. Have a great rest of this beautiful autumn day. At least it is here in North Carolina. Hope it is for y'all too. Hope here you're having a warm spell up there. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.